Thanks again for tuning back into the channel. Now, as you've probably seen by the description, that this video is over 1 hour long, and the reason for that is it's a full-length tutorial. All the assets are included and you can get them down below in the description, and the link in the description. So if you want to follow along with this, everything's there for you, and if you want to use the images in your own composites, feel free to go ahead. The reason I created this video is to perhaps help you learn new techniques, or to just allow you just to explore collages using Photoshop. And to be honest, it was when I was in, as they say, a creative rut, this is something that I do. I'll go and I'll grab a handful of images, throw them into Photoshop, and just see what emerges at the end. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time I'll pick up something new that I can use for another image. There won't be any breaks during the tutorial except for the adverts that appear during long form videos. Hopefully you get something from this, and hopefully you enjoy your creation at the end of it. I won't be there for a roundup at the end of the video, so if you enjoy this tutorial, please hit the like button, and if you're currently not a subscriber but like the content, have a look around about the rest of the channel and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial. So we're going to drop in the picture of the red-haired girl and simply click OK. Now we're going to utilise Photoshop's better selection method. So I'm going to select the object selection tool, and then I'm going to go to select subject, and this will make a selection of the girl. Then I'm going to go to select and mask, and you can see that's a cracking selection of that. So what I'm going to do is decontaminate the colours slightly, and let's see a tiny bit of contrast, just to see if that helps. That's actually okay. 1% of contrast. Make sure the output is set to new layer with layer mask, and then click OK. Because we have a smart object in here, and that's going to add slightly more file size to the document, if we stop just now and then hit save, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the layer and hit the backspace key, so that all I have now is redhead copy that is masked, and also the background layer. So as you can see, this looks a rather flat image as it is, even with all the shading here. So what we're going to do is we're now going to bring in the bird image, and we're going to drag that straight in and click OK, and then I am just simply going to turn off the girl. You can move it to the top if you wish, because it will remain there once we are done. Again, we are going to engage the selection tool and select subject, and that will do a rather nice selection of that. Won't with this. So again, we will go into select and mask, decontaminate colours. Yeah, that looks good, and then click OK. This time, however, I'm going to keep that because I need to use it later on. And what I'm going to do, so that I know that I want to keep it, is I'm going to right click here, and I am just going to colour that one green. So I'm going to turn back on the girl, and then we are going to scale this one. So I'm going to go to the move tool, and then press Command and T in my keyboard and scale this down just to around about there for now. And that looks okay. Tiny bit smaller. Let's make it a bit bigger. Let's go for about that. Perhaps even bigger, because what I want to do is I want to have repetition across this. So what I'm going to do is going to leave it there just now, and I am going to go into the rulers. If rulers are not engaged, press Control or Command and R, and that will make the rulers visible. And then I'm going to drag halfway across, which in this case is 50%. It's just going to be less than that, just so that it's in the middle of our nose. and then I am going to move that across to there. And already you can see that that has created slight depth in there as well, and that's just a visual thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the size of the canvas, but I'm going to ensure delete crop pixels is off. So I'm going to take that out to just about there and click OK. Now we're going to do this in sections because you can see there's a slight white showing through there. I'm just going to go V in the keyboard, select that layer, and instead of moving it, I'm actually just going to scale it slightly because it doesn't hurt to scale this. And then of course I'm going to have to move it. So it's going to sit there at the moment. What I'm going to do so that I get the repetition on the other side is I am going to hold down Alt in my keyboard, and with the move tool selected, you'll notice that the mouse changes to indicate a black and a white arrow. And then I'm just going to drag to the side. Then I'm going to let go of Alt, and you'll notice it jumps back up, and then I'm going to drag just to about there, and then I'm letting go of Shift as well. Next will be Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. So as you can see where the repetition is going to come from. So I want to move this to nearly exactly on the other side of this. So what I can do is if I start to move it and then I hold down Shift, that will lock it onto the axis, and then I can drag it out to there. Now that will mean that the bird is exactly opposite the girl there as well. Yes, but you'll notice here there is a slight selection. We will remove that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that out just to around about there. That looks about right. Now I could have made the document the perfect size to begin with, but this is just allowing you to see different methods of creating. Click OK. Now I'm going to take this off. I'm going to just simply hide it, and that's just Command or Control and H, and that just hides the guide. There you go, it's hidden. And again, I'm going to, in this case, expand the background. Control and T, just drag that out. So you can see the starting point for this. It is a lot of repetition, but the final effect of the image, I think, is actually rather good, and it's nothing that I expected when I first did it. So let's just click OK here. Right, so we have the two birds in here, and we have the bird copy here. Now, what I want to do is I want wings down here as well, and wings down here as well. So I'm going to select one of the layers, and you'll notice that at the moment I have auto select on, and I've selected one of the birds, and I'm simply going to press Command or Control and J, and that copies the layer up. In this case, it's a nice enough mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the mask itself and apply the layer mask. So this area here has no mask on it now. So I can just move that to wherever I want. And what I'm going to do is once I've moved it up there, Control or Command and T, and then I'm going to rotate it. Like so. I just take it off the screen. Just to around about there. That actually looks okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it up, because I don't want the bird's beak in here, but I want the feathers to come down to roughly around that area. So you see again, with the light in the background, the light here, the light here, it's creating a feeling of depth within the image. Click OK. Again, we need that layer. So what I'm going to do is just Command and J, and then I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Flip, Horizontal, and then I'm going to move it across. Now to keep it in exactly the same place, start to move it and then hold down shift and then take it across to where you need it. Now I had to let that go because as you see I went too far. So I'm now going to start to move it again and then hold down shift, and I'm going to take that to just around about there. Now that looks quite even as it is. We're not looking for exact duplication of it, we're looking for it so that it feels right when you look at it. And also doing it this way, it shows you different techniques. I could have very simply copied that and flipped it over in the exact same position, but this way it's letting you see different techniques. In this case, holding down Alt to copy something or Shift to keep anything you're moving on the same axis. So I'm going to leave those two like that. I'm going to select this one, select this one, and I'm going to link them together so as that any time I move them, they both move at the same time. And then what I'm going to do is put them in a group, and I'm going to call this group Background Wings. And then I'm going to move it behind this layer. So I'm just going to grab that, and I can actually move it behind the girl if I want. And that way it's down there. You can see now that it's moved behind there. Now to save any accidental movement for now, I'm going to select the group that we've just created and I'm going to lock it. So now I can't move that at all. As you see, all it's doing is moving the background layer. So it jumps to the layer below if you have locked a layer. I also like where the girl is at the moment, so I'm going to lock that layer. I like where these two are at the moment, so I'm going to link them by holding down Shift and selecting both layers, linking them, and then I'm going to lock both of them. Now I haven't put them into a group as yet because I want to check them first. You'll notice earlier when I was moving them there was a line, but the line's no longer there. So that was a zoom in and out, holding down Z in the keyboard. Now it's Control or Command and 0 to go full. We have to add a colour in the background of this. So I am going to select the background layer. I'm going to go into the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to start just roughly around here. Now remember that we can move this at any point at all, so I'm just going in there. We can scale it, move it at any point at all. Now for this to work and to work quite nicely, we need to complement the hair with this, so we are going to look for a green, maybe going in towards the warmer tones slightly. Perhaps about too dark, perhaps about there. So that's 56, 45, 49. I'm going to click OK. Now this could be right, could be wrong. Press G in the keyboard, which is also the paint bucket tool, and fill that in. Bit too dark, but we will deal with that as well. I'm now going to go Control or Command and D to deselect. Now we have to put this centre and then we can work it out from there instead of doing it by measuring it out. So what I'm going to do is, you'll notice I've made a mistake and I've dropped it onto that layer, which I don't want. I don't want it on the background layer. So how we go around sorting that is Control or Command and Z, and you'll notice the selection is still there. Add a new layer and then flood fill it again. So it's now on its own separate layer. Control and D or Command and D to deselect. Control and H to bring back the guide. Now the guide is going to allow us to place this where we want it. Then I'm going to go Control or Command and T, and you'll see the center point there. So if I move that up and then move it across, that's it, exactly in the center. To engage it so that it snaps to the center for you, go to View and turn on Snap. And I'll move that out of the way and you'll notice that it's snapped there. See the pink line that's appearing? That lets me know that that is perfectly in the centre. And just by luck, if you look here, 80, so there's a 20% gap here, and that's at 20, and there's a 20% gap there. Now that is completely and utterly by luck, as you know. It still also might be too much for this, but because it's on its own layer, we can adjust it later. So the next thing we're going to add is the hanging flowers, and I'm just going to drag them straight in, and I'm going to move them to there. And just click OK. And again, we're going to utilise the brilliant new selection method. It's not brand new, it just performs better. Select subject, and that will select my subject for me. In this case, the hanging flowers. And then I am simply going to go in and select and mask, decontaminate colours, and look at the job that's done. There's the odd mistake in there, or the odd part, not a mistake, that it's not picked up, but for me that is phenomenal, to be honest. That is really good and such a time saver. I'm simply going to click OK because we have already set new layer with layer mask. Click OK. As I mentioned previously, it's created a smart object from that one. I don't want it, so I'm selecting the layer, pressing the backspace or delete key, and it's gone. Now, with this one, this is up to you where you place them. I am just going to go where I did previously, and I'm just going to put them around about there. That looks okay. Now that that's there, we need to blend it in, and in my case, I don't want the flowers or the petals of the flowers that are in this white here showing, so that then becomes a blend mode. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go in, and soft light should give me the effect that I want, which is quite nice because we don't see anything here, but it doesn't give me the effect that I want against this green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the green layer, and I am going to adjust it. And I can change the colour of it, I can blend it, I can turn down the opacity of it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to create an adjustment layer, and I'm going to go in and go hue saturation. Now if I pull the saturation back in that, you'll see that the flowers begin to show up better. If I push the lightness of it, the flowers, for what I am wanting, you can do whatever you want here. That works for me just about there. Let's just change that slightly. I still want a hint of green in it, but yet it looks quite nice with the pink in it as well. So, but I want a hint of green in it. So I'm going to go a bit there. And let's just boost that saturation slightly. And we're losing some of the green. So you see, you can play around with this. You can play and make it any colour that you actually wish. I don't want it too much. I don't want perhaps a bit there, which is slightly different from where we were. And then I'm going to leave it at that for this instance. And then I am going to go in and just look at an overlay or a soft light. Hard light's too much because it still shows there. Let's go for soft light. So we have that now. So we need the same mirrored. This is the repetition of this. Control or Command and J, and you see that that actually shows up better. So we may go back and change that, but what we're going to do just now is edit, transform, flip horizontal. So you'll notice that they have moved. And now if we start to move them, then hold down Shift, they stay in the same axis. Let's go for that. It's not perfect because her hair is out here, so it's not exactly mirrored, but it works okay for what we are going to do. You'll notice that there's only one layer grouped at the moment, and we will deal with this very, very shortly. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in another image, and that other image is this one. and it's dropped in exactly where I want it to be, which is the colourful flower, but I want it behind the girl. So that is because I never paid attention to where I was dropping it. Had I dropped it in there, it would be in the front, and let's just work with it there for this example. Again, select subject. Really nice selection of that. Selecting mask, and let's decontaminate the colours. Lovely. Again, click OK. So if you have dropped it in the wrong place and you put it on top, it's now simply just a case of dragging the layer down below. And there we go. Now that works okay for me, and I actually quite like how it looks at the moment. I'm going to hide the guide, which is Control or Command and H. Perhaps a little dark. Let's just fade it slightly. Dark was not what I meant to say there. Perhaps a little prominent. Let's just fade it slightly. So there we have everything coming together now. Now I want to go back and I want to sort these wings. And the reason for that is I want to make them bigger in the image. So I'm going to go back into the background wings layer or group, and I'm going to unlock it. Now you can unlock it simply by just clicking on there, and then I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go into auto select group. I'm going to zoom out slightly, which is Control or Command and minus, and then I'm going to go Control and T, which is free transform. Now this way I am scaling both at the same time because I've selected the background wings group, and also in my selection have made it select group. So I am now just simply going to drag this down like so, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys just to move it back up slightly, just to about there. And the reason for this is I wanted some more of the feathers to disappear behind. I could have scaled them individually and then moved them across, but for me this is the quickest method for this image. So we have everything falling into place now, and it actually looks okay. If I press F in the keyboard twice and then plus, that actually looks okay. Came this far, let's go on and finish the image. You'll remember at the beginning I asked you to keep the bird layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the bird layer to the top, and we're going to engage it so that you can see it again. I'm going to use, to start with, select and mask. So I'm going to go select subject, and that will select the bird. And then select and mask. And then we have this. Now I only want the wing. I could go into the lasso tool and I could hold down Alt, which is minus, and I could zoom in a bit, and then use the space bar to move down, and then simply hold down Alt and just draw it out. It's entirely up to you for this part of the process. And then bring it back round and then just let it connect. So you'll notice that that was quite quick as well. We can go down here. I don't need some of the tail, so I'm still holding down Alt, and I'm going to do that. And now we can do it in sections depending on the size of your screen. So we can do that and then move it across, hold down Alt with the lasso tool selected, go in there, in there. Let's just go up in there. So we don't need accuracy here because of what we're going to do. So I can't move the screen. Let's pretend I can't move the screen. So I've left some areas down there. So I'll let that go and reconnect. Hold down Shift, hold down Alt. And there we go. I'll zoom back out. So that is mainly what I need for this next process. So this is saying output to selection. Now what I can do is I can go to selection, or I can go new layer mask, new layer, layer with layer mask, new document, or new document with layer mask. I'm going to do this perhaps a slower way, but just to let you see what can be done with Photoshop. So I'm just going to go for selection and click OK. So that there lets you see what it has selected on this bird layer. Let's just simply press Command and J, copied it up. Let's turn the bird layer off. We have that. Now we could have outputted it to a layer mask, but I'm quite happy with this because for the next process I would have applied the layer mask anyway. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the size of this. Control and T, which is free transform, and then just scale down the size of it. Roughly about there. Doesn't have to be accurate. Roughly about there though. And then click OK. Now the next part of the process, if you've seen some of the other videos, is just creating an array, or what's called an array in other softwares. And it's basically just the method of copying the same object and placing it in certain elements or certain rotations in this case. And I'll show you how to do that. So first of all, select the layer. Press Control or Command and J to copy the layer. Then press Control and T to transform the layer. Now we want the layer to rotate round an axis, and that's your center point. And if you can't see your center point, go up here. And you can turn that on or turn it off. Now you can choose any of the points as a center point. You'll notice there, by mistake, I clicked the top corner. I don't want it there. I actually want the center point here. So that's us set this up so that it's going to rotate round the same center point, which is here. And I'm going to rotate that slightly, like so. Or do we go that way? Let's go that way instead. Let's make it a bit more dramatic and go to about there. Press OK. Now instead of showing you this in its entirety, what I'll do is I'll do it once more, and it'll just show you what's going to happen. Now that we've set up a series of commands here, I then go Control and J, and then Shift, Control and T, and you'll notice it's repeated it. And then Control and J, and then Shift, Control and T. Then Control and J, Shift, Control and T. Now you get the idea from this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the rest of the video until I get a full rotation from this. Now that I've got that far, what I can then do, if I don't want to go through an entire rotation of it, I can select the top layer and select the bottom layer, the initial layer that I started with, and then just press Control or Command and E, and that brings it down into one layer. Then what I can do if I wanted to save time is Control and J, and then just rotate it, and we will take it to about there, and we'll rotate it, and you get that effect. Now that was a complete guess for the effect, but you can see where it is rotating from. So I can do that and just move it back into place. So I now have that. And if you followed that, you can actually set up an action for that as well. I don't have one set up at the moment, but you can set up an action. I'll show you that in another video. Once we have the two of these aligned to where they should be, select them both, holding down Shift and Control and E, and that combines them into one layer. Now is the time that we can move this and place it wherever we want within our document. So I'm going to take it down behind at the moment, down behind the flower, so you can see that there. Now if I go to move that, I may be lucky and I can still move it like so. Yes, I can. But should there be another layer in the way or an effect in the way, a good way to get round that is go up with the selection tool engaged, turn off auto select layer, so that anything that I try to move, it only moves that layer that is selected. Now you'll notice I'm going to jump to this layer because I don't like the opacity of this now. So I'm going to take that back up to about there. Then I'm now going to go back down to this layer and I'm going to move it roughly about there. Now sometimes it will begin to snap across to another part of the document, and that's when you've got to remember to go up and turn off snap. Right, I quite like that in there. So again, I'm going to copy it and move it across to the other side. Control or Command and J, and then I'm on this new layer, as you can see, because I've copied it up. I'm going to start to move it and then hold down Shift, and it will keep it on the same axis. Now you can move that out to wherever you want within your document. I'm not going for a mirror here because the leaves or the petals of this flower help break up the mirrored effect of this entire image. So everything's looking good so far, and hopefully I'm not eating into your time too much and you are getting something from this. Now we're a few more things to add, and one of the things that we're going to add is a column. So we're going to bring that in. I'm just going to drop it wherever. You can see it's in the background there. Let's just place it about there for the moment. And then let's just click OK. And let's trust Photoshop this time. So go into the object selection and go select subject. And there we have the object, or in this case the column, selected. Let's go into select and mask, and let's just simply decontaminate colours. New layer with layer mask, click OK. And I am actually quite happy with where that's fallen in this case, or where I've placed it on the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down behind just to let them come in front. Does that make it too busy? We can move that at any point. We need a second one, and we need it over there. So with the layer selected, Control and J, choose the move tool, which is V in the keyboard, start to move and then hold down Shift, and that will move it in the same axis. Now you will notice here, and this is actually quite good, because of this area was outside the document bounds, this area was not taken into consideration with the selection. So I'm going to remove that manually. And basically what I can do is I can go into the mask, choose a brush, and in this case I'm simply going to just make it a hard brush because there's nothing close by that I need to worry about. And I'm just going to paint right down just to make sure that it is gone totally. Now, you will notice that there is light here, shade here, light here, and then everything else that's going on with that. We need this one flipped horizontal. So with the layer selected, edit, transform, and flip horizontal. So there you go, that's it there. I'm going to move this one back over, start to move it, and then holding down Shift. And I may even move it to about there. So I might even move this one, and I can't move it because I'm already on auto select. So I'm going to move that one and just do that. So that's roughly about where I want it. And I'm doing this visually, I am not. So it goes about there. In fact, as I'm doing it visually, I'm actually watching the feathers that come in and where they're coming in to the column itself. So that looks okay, quite happy with that so far. Now you may be looking at this and going, but I'd spent the time putting those flowers in and you can hardly see them. That is entirely up to you. The fact that they're there causes an extra depth. It doesn't mean that because you take the time to do something you should show it. We may change it later, but for now we're going to leave it as it is because it's creating an extra depth to this image. There is something in the background which draws the viewer's curiosity. The next thing we're going to do, because we're building up the image stage by stage, and hopefully you are getting something from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the top layer for this, and I'm going to bring in the image of the crow. And then just click OK. Again, engage select subject. Select that. And then once it's selected, select and mask, and let's just decontaminate the colours. And that's, again, that's worked fantastically well. I love how good this is now. And click OK. Now the crow is going to be repeated on this wing and this wing. So the first thing we do, go to the move tool, select the crow, and we can actually go in now, auto select layer, because we're on the very top now. We're not going to affect any other layers. And if you are happy with every other layer as it is just now, and to save any movement or accidents via movement, select every layer and lock them. And you can do it in mass if you want. You can select that one, go all the way down to the bottom, and then just click lock. And that locks them all. It is entirely up to you. The column layer that is in as a smart object, I don't need it, so I'm going to select it and hit the backspace key or the delete key, and it is now gone. Back up to the crow. Controller Command and T, which is free transform, and we're just going to scale this one down to about near enough perfect size, and it's just placement now. Now for the placement, I am looking at contrast so that the bird stands out more. And in this case, going in there, that's okay, but do you notice the contrast between the light and the beak? And here, that I'm quite happy with. So I'm going to leave it there just now, select it, Controller Command and J to copy it, edit transform, flip horizontal, and then I'm going to move this one out. So I'm going to start to move it and then hold down shift, and it should stay on the same axis. So I'm going to put it about there. So you notice there's more contrast in here because we've got the dark and the light, and the dark and the light there, and the light here and the dark there. So it's coming together. It may seem a long time, and hopefully, as I say, you're getting something from this, but these kind of things help me when I am in a creative rut, just picking images and throwing them together, and that's exactly how this image came together. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to bring in the flower chain. I'm going to bring that in and drop it there. And again, select subject, select and mask, decontaminate, and there we go. That's lovely. I like that. And click OK. So I'm going to keep this layer. I'm going to right click just there and colour that one green as well. So the greens are the ones that I'm keeping for now. So where do we want to place this? Now I'll actually want a couple of copies of this. So with this one here, I'm going to colour this one red. And then I'm going to just turn it off and then copy it up once. So that's the one that I'll jump back to. That's the one in case I make mistakes, and that's the one I'll jump back to should I need to use it. So I'm going to turn that on here. And what we're going to do now is going to put a slight curve in this. What I'm actually going to do with this is one of the simpler methods, but this can go wrong as well. So just to let you see, edit, puppet warp. Now what you do is you pin. So I actually have, first of all, it'll pop up like that and show you mesh. I find that rather distracting, so I turn off the mesh. And then I'll just click once, twice, and that's me pinned it at the top and bottom. And then I'll look for an area. Now, if you've not used Puppet Warp before, play around with it. You'll see how far you can actually pull it. I'm going to go roughly about there. Let's just go in there. And I'm going to just bend that out slightly. Just ever so slightly. I don't want too much. I don't want it to start distorting. You see there? The distortion starting. So I'd have to put another one in here and try and curve that. So I'm going to bring that back slightly. Perhaps put one in there as well. Now it's worth playing around with this. So yes, do I like that? It's okay. Perhaps I'll take it over there a bit further and perhaps I'll bring it up there a bit more. Maybe even push it out there. That's too much in there, so I put another one in there. So you can see how it all comes together and how it can all change. We push that one over there, which means it's pinned in between these two, so I end up with a bulge there. Bring that back out. So play around with this until you get the effect that you are most happy with. I'm going to leave it at that because that for me is okay for what I'm after. Plus, I am eating into your valuable time with this. This one here, I am going to take up to about there. Just there. I don't want it touching the wings as yet. And I may even move it across slightly. I can scale it up and down and do that. But then the flowers up here get lost. So let's just go for that just now. Again, I need a copy of that. Command or Control and J. I've copied it up. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. Then we're going to move it and hold down Shift, and it will keep it in the same axis. So we have that effect. And again, that looks okay. It's nothing brilliant. It's not perfectly centered, but it looks okay for what we are trying to do with this. Now I could also rotate these. I can Control and or Command and T, and I could choose where to rotate it from. I could rotate it up there by moving the center point, bring it up, bring it round onto the face more. It is entirely up to you. This is your image. I'm just going to stop that there. What I'm going to try with it is Control or Command and T. With it selected, Control or Command and T, and then I'm going to rotate it that way and move it out here. That works better. I'm also aware of what's going on up here, so you're looking for anything up here, edge patrol or anything competing for your visuals. There. This one we will just go Control and T, and then we're going to rotate that one as well. It's not going to be exact, but this may actually work better for this image. So let's just do that. Up here it was competing, so I'm watching what I'm doing here. There you go, that's actually quite nice. Just to around about, in this case, there. Let's leave it at that and click OK. Now I wanted to keep the flower chain, and as I say, we have that one there. But what I'm going to do first of all with these two here is I'm going to recolor them. So I'm going to select the top one, select the bottom one, put them in a group, and we will call this flower chain. And with the group, I'm going to get into adjustments, and I'm going to get into hue saturation. But I only want it to affect the flowers, because if I don't click that there and I do this, it affects everything. I only want it to affect the flowers, in this case the flower group. So choose that icon there, which clips it to the layer below, only affecting the layer below. And in this case, that's exactly what I want, is to take out most of the saturation, and let's lighten them slightly, just to about there. So originally, if that's not on, we have the pink, now we have the white, and now I haven't bothered with the green because I quite like the fact that it disappears into the background, so I haven't individually edited that. That says we can put this one in a group as well if we want, or we can lock the both of them, link the both of them, sorry, and then lock both of them. So those flowers are now locked as well. You can see it's quite a long image to edit or time-wise. So, but it's one of these things I think it's fun to do, as I mentioned earlier. If you're in a creative slump, you're just playing around with images, looking to see if everything's working okay. And as I'm talking just now, I notice edge patrol, and I see that there is breaking the top of the image. So I'm going to unlock it, and I am going to unlock that one as well, and it is this one here. I'm just going to move it up slightly. There we go. Perhaps to about there. Right, and then select both, or select all of them, and lock them. When you're working like this though, it would be very prudent of you to put them in a group. And then you can call this one flower chain group. And that's us. And then lock the group. So you remember the flower chain that I coloured in red? I want that one, which is here, and you can see it there, and if I go in to move it, I can move it around there. But what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to rotate it, but I'm going to rotate it using the edit transform, and let's rotate it clockwise. So we have this here. I want this to follow roughly that shape there. Roughly. What I wanted to do is I want it to lie over the wings of this first bird, and then we're going to repeat it and put it over that one. So let's put it in place for the end point. So let's go for an end point about there. There's a part of that flower cut off. So I'm going to make that the end point. So we now go Edit, Puppet Warp. And I'm going to pin that one there because I don't want it to move, or move as little as possible. I'm going to pin one there. Now I'm going to move this in sections instead of pinning the start and this point here. Once I have moved it to where I want it here, I can then pin it there and then bring it down. And it may just, in fact, create a nice curve. And it nearly did. So let's take it to there. So you can see that curve is coming across there, and that's coming out, and that's competing visually with the beak. So I am going to put a pin there, and I'm going to bring that in and actually move it. So that will stretch some of the flowers, and that's okay in this instance. And put another pin there and take it up. So it's not following it exactly, and you'll notice that it's now beginning to lift up here. So I can take that one back to there. For edge patrol in this case, I think this will be okay. I'm going to put a pin in there. Sometimes if you put too many pins in, you will get a warning telling you that there's too many pins, so it won't work properly. Let's put up another pin there. And let's move that one up a tiny bit so that it's not sitting on the bird's head. That looks okay. Click OK. Command or Control and J. Edit, transform, flip horizontal, take the move tool, start to move it, hold down shift, and it will walk to the same axis, and then take it to roughly the same place. So there you go. That's it. We are not too far from the end of this image. So you'll notice now that we have the lines of the masks. So we need to clean that up. So I'm going to go to the crow copy, which is that one there. And I am going to go into the mask of it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to check the hardness of the brush is at 100%. Now what we can do is we can zoom in a bit here just to see if it disappears, because sometimes within Photoshop the more you zoom in the more things disappear. I'm going to click once there, hold down shift, draw a straight line through it. Now I'm going to do exactly the same with this one. So I'm going to jump onto the mask, click once there, click once there, and it's gone. You will also notice that it was through here, but now that we've zoomed in between the two birds, it was through here, but now that we've zoomed in, it is gone. So I'm going to zoom back out, and you'll notice that it's reappeared. Now, if I get down to the two birds, you'll notice that if I turn one off, one of the lines disappears. If I turn the other one off, another line disappears. So what I'm going to do to save me time doing that twice is I'm going to unlock both of them, select both of them, holding down Shift, put them in a group, and add a mask to the group. So you'll see that that's both of them in there, and they are now both grouped within this, and the group has a mask. And now I can quite simply go click once there, hold down Shift, click there. You notice it disappeared. Let's just check the edges. Yep, there's one there. I can just do the rest by hand if I want. And yep, there is some of it there. So if I zoom back out, you'll notice it's all cleaned up. Again, at this point, I will hit Save, which is Control or Command and S. It's looking a tad bare and empty up here, so let's just work with what we have without adding anything else to it. And let's go into the flower chain group and unlock it. Let's copy the entire group up, Control or Command and J. From here, go into the selection tool, auto select, and let's go group, and that group is selected. Control and T, zoom out. They must be locked. They are. So there you go. So let's unlock that, unlock that, unlock that, and unlock that. Right. And now that they've been unlocked, Control and T, and let's take them down in size, put them about, say there. You can even rotate them if you want. You can put them there if you want. It's entirely up to you. Now, if you're wondering how to get it exact, if you haven't just rotated clockwise or anything, up here tells you the angle of rotation. So if I go in there and go 180 and hit return, that's them directly at 180. I'm going to click OK there, but I want them behind the girl, I think. So I'm going to take the group and I'm going to drag it behind her. There we go. Yep, and I'm going to nudge them over slightly, just ever so slightly, because I feel as if they're offset simply because of this. So let's just test it. So let's select the group, press V in the keyboard, and just nudge them slightly. Just to about there. Now that we're down here, we're going to add more elements to this. In total, I think we have another 4 elements to add. So as I said at the very beginning of this video, it is a long process, but hopefully it's something that you'll enjoy doing and something that you'll get something from as well. Right, so I'm going to go into the flower chain group copy and just copy up a new layer. In this new layer, I'm going to add a rectangular marquee, and I'm just going to do that. That's it. Doesn't have to be accurate. We can scale it later. And then I am going to choose a colour. In this case, I'm just going to go for blue. Press G in the keyboard, which is the paint bucket tool. And in this case, the last thing that I used was the gradient tool. So I'm going to change that to paint bucket, and I'm going to flood fill that in there. And then deselect, which is Control or Command and D. So again, we've created more depth in the image, and hopefully you can see how everything is beginning to fall into place just with these final elements. With this one, I am going to scale it, free transform, and I'm going to hold down Shift so that I'm only working on one of them. And let's go to about there. That looks okay for me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these up, and I'm going to rotate them in the same way that we did the array previously. So with layer 2, and we'll just call this blue line, I'm going to copy it up once, Control J, and then I am going to go Control T, which is free transform, and I do want this one to rotate from the center. So I'm going to do that, click OK, then Control J, then Shift Control T. So we've now got a third one, 3 might work, but I'm going to go for 4. Control J, Shift Control T. And we now have these 4 elements here. What I'm going to do with them is combine them all into one layer. So I'm just going to select the top layer, Control or Command and E until we have the blue line. Then I'm going to go Control and T, and I'm going to stretch them so that they go outside of the frame slightly. So I'm going to stretch it that way and then stretch it that way. Now it's not an even stretch, but it will work for what we're wanting to do with it. So remember at the very beginning I mentioned about warping these and the tools that you could use for warping. I'm going to warp this one. So I'm going to go into Edit, Transform and Warp. And we're going to jump up to the top here. And we are simply going to go into a custom warp and we're going to go for flag. And that works lovely. There we go. So we've now got another element added to this. And should you want to colour that, for example, in a gradient, this is another way that you can do it as well without using an adjustment layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the layer itself, hold down Control, and you'll notice that down in the hand there is a selection marquee. Click that once and you'll notice it's selected. I'm then going to move on to a new layer, and then I am going to go in to the gradient tool and we can choose any gradient at all. The last one that I was using, we could go for, let's go just for the purple, and then start in the middle. I have a radial gradient on. Just grab that, pull that out to there, bring it in. We have any options available that you want to use, and this is the gradient that we have. I can adjust that so that it moves out further. I can bring it in closer to where its default position is. I can allow more blue to fade in and only purple just behind. I'll take that to the centre. I can take it out so that more purple. It is entirely up to you. If you want, you can even click down here and add another colour. And if you want to change that colour from that there, which is your foreground colour, just click there. This reappears. Let's go in for green. Just to see, click OK. So now we have a green in here. It is entirely up to you how you work this. I can even make that quite a tight edit in here, as you can see. So we can drag that in as well. You have many options where you can play around with the gradients. I'm going to step this back just to what I had originally though, because I quite like that. Quite like that effect. And I'll just go here. So I'm going to press F in the keyboard twice, and that's the image we have currently. Few more things to add and then we are done with this edit. So I do thank you for your patience and I hope you're enjoying going through this edit with me. Going to go down to a different layer and I'm going to go to background wings, and I'm going to create a new layer on top of that, so this here. And I'm going to go back into the gradient tool, but I'm going to choose the basic gradients. So I'm going to leave it as white and I'm going to go into the basic gradient and I'm going to choose the white, and I'm going to ensure that I've radial gradient selected. I'm going to get in here and I'm just going to drag that up. And I can move it around and I can place it wherever I want. And that one I am actually quite happy with. So I'm going to create a new layer, do the same at this side. And then we have a fade out again. And you'll notice yet again I'm still playing with contrast so that it emphasises parts of the image. That's us, we are nearly done with this image. We have only one more element to add and then to repeat it 3 times. So go to the very top for this one. We are going to move it, but go to the very top for this one. So the final element that we are going to add to this is the orange light glow. And that drops in there. Let's just make it a tiny bit bigger. And the blending mode for this is screen. And you can see what it does. And then I'm going to start to move it, and I'm going to hold down shift and just take it to there. Now this is not the layer order that it is going to end up in, but it's a good one to place it at if you're unfamiliar with Photoshop and just getting the hang of it. We're going to copy the layer up again, and then we're going to scale the layer using Control and T, which is free transform, and then we're just going to scale it down in size just to around about there, and we're going to place it over that crow just about there. Now you can leave it there if you want. That looks fine as it is, because then we would just go Control or Command and J, another one, and then begin to move it and hold down shift and place it around that crow as well. And that's how it looks. And you can leave your image like that. I'm simply going to edit it in another way that I preferred for this image. But before I do that, that is now the top layer, which is this one here. I want to move this one back down through. And if I place it around about there, do you notice it drops behind those flowers? And that looks okay. So back to the top layer, which is this one here. I'm going to adjust this one just to show you something again with the image. And you can leave it there if you're quite happy with that, but you can also try this as well if you want. Press Control or Command and T. Drag down while holding shift. And just do that. That's it. That's all I'm after. Then hold down shift again. Place that about there. And then we can scale it down if we wish. Move it across. Click OK. That effect you may like, you may not. You may have preferred it as it stood before. Let's put it down there, and let's actually scale it in slightly to around about, say there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rasterize this layer. So I've right clicked on the layer, rasterize layer, Control and J, doubled it up, Control and E, and brought it down. And now I'm simply going to copy that one across to there, and then I am done. Click in the layer, hold down Alt, drag, and then hold down Shift and take it across there. Now you'll notice on both of these that it doesn't go behind the crow. In this instance, if you're happy where they are, you can mask this, and masking it is the best way of doing it, but I'm just going to show you, because of this image, you can still use an eraser. And that was the last eraser I had. Let's go to the top, let's take the basic round eraser and just simply paint in where you don't want it to be. And what that will do is, once I'm on the correct layer, what that will do is just erase it. I'm not looking for the edges, anything like that. My eraser's set to a hardness of 0. Quite happy with that. I can go back onto that one. Perhaps just click a couple of times, there and there. And I think I am going to call this image done. Now, if you want to go back and change anything about this image, I can take out that and leave it as the blue line. That perhaps works better. I can go into this gradient fill and I can change any of the colours. I could go in and make it green. Okay, and then make the outside elements of it more kind of yellow. Again, that's okay. It's entirely up to you. This is your creation, and it's entirely up to you what you do with it. So I'm going to leave it at that, and there we go. That's the final image that we have. After looking at the image, I feel that it is too blank up here, and each image, is, every time you do them, they develop their own character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back down to the green layer here, and if I turn off that there, you'll see that that's the green layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in a texture to this, and I'll just drop this one in. That I feel works perfectly, so I'm just going to scale that up just to there so that it's hidden and it doesn't appear anywhere in this, and click OK. Now that's underneath the hue saturation layer, so the hue saturation layer is affecting this. Let's see what it's like without the hue saturation layer. We're going to leave the hue saturation layer there. Quite happy with this image now.